Are you a musician trying to figure out what the ISWC code is? Welcome to this episode where I plan on demystifying just that. Now, to get us going, I need to explain basically how music composition works. This won't be lengthy. So in music, there are two halves in general. There's the composition half and there's the sound recording half. The composition half basically consists of the lyrics that are written, the melodies, and the underlying composition. So think of the theme of the actual song. Now, the sound recording is when you take that composition and go to a studio or home studio, etc., and record a version of the composition. And then you can hear the sound recording. That is the sound recording. So those are the two halves. The ISWC code is the identification number for the composition. ISWC stands for International Standard Music Work Code. Music work is the W. Music work code. It is basically a global identification number used across all the PROs in the world. In terms of SAMRO, SAMRO uses this ISWC code to get your information from another PRO such as ASCAP or BMI or CSAC, etc. So this number is very useful when identifying music compositional works. Now, the significance of the ISWC code is basically for management of music, so to catalog music. In terms of music rights, it also makes it easier for people to assure that their music rights are collected, and for royalty collection, as I mentioned before, several PROs, most of them use ISWC codes in order to get the monies from generated compositions to the relative musicians. So it is very important you understand what the ISWC code is. The ISWC code is usually assigned by the PRO and other PROs within the world. PROs are performance rights organizations such as ASCAP, BMI, but in the South African context, SAMRO is the PRO. But I have found that some of my assignment has been done by Capasso. I'm not too sure why. I will get more information on that, and I'll probably do a separate video with regards to the ISWC code. But when I got it, I had to email SAMRO specifically requesting for the ISWC code, and that's how I got some of my ISWC codes. The ISWC code starts with the letter T and has a couple of numbers. I think it's about 9 numbers, and that's how you identify that it is actually the ISWC code. You do not generate these similar to another code called the ISRC, which is in another video, but the ISWC code is given to you by the performance right organization for the specific work or composition. So should you worry if you do not have the ISWC code? In a nutshell, if you are in South Africa working within South Africa, most of your compositions are covered in terms of another code. I don't want to confuse the situation, but basically there are two codes. There's the ISWC code, and that is for the composition. And remember, the second half is the sound recording, which is the ISRC code. Now, the ISRC code is somewhat used within the PROs. Now, the ISRC code is also an identification number, but that is for the sound recording. So they are slightly different, but they both identify songs and music, but slightly differently. So in terms of the ISWC code, if you are working with international libraries, they will generally get those ISWC codes for you. But if you are pitching your own music across the world, this is when it gets a little tricky. I'm not an expert on that field, but I will get someone who does know, and then I'll tell you more or less how to go about getting your ISWC code. I do know it is fairly difficult to get it from our PRO in South Africa, but you can email them specifically, and then they will give you some form of answer. The ISWC code is very important in terms of sync licensing because your music is being played in many countries. If you are into sync, that is. Sync is when you put music into film or TV. Your music is being played all over the world depending on where the show is airing. So the ISWC code is very important in terms of sync. But if you are not in the sync game, then the ISWC code is not something to worry too much about, but at least get the ISRC code for your music because nothing really happens if there's no identification number on the music that you're making. So whether you're a musician, a songwriter, artist, you really want to understand what the ISWC code is, and if you're an independent person trying to get your music for sync, then the ISWC code is of importance. But if you want to know more about how this breakdown is, I have a mini course titled Understanding Music Publishing in South Africa. I'll leave a link in the description below. It's only 100 Rand, and I'd really appreciate it if you went over to show support and to learn a little more about the music business. Until next time, Skill again, the hooligan, signing out.